Tonight's story comes from a place where the roads feel endless. The fog moves like it has a mind of its own. And midnight isn't just a time, it's a warning. This is the true account of a night one man swears changed everything he believed about the world. And after hearing what followed him home, you might believe it too. Liam never talked about that night until months later, and even then, he told it like someone trying to make sense of something impossible. He wasn't the type to scare easily, and definitely not the type to imagine things that weren't there. That's why, when he finally opened up about what happened, I listened carefully. He told me everything started on a quiet autumn evening somewhere in the outskirts of a small rural town in the US. The kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked and the roads turn pitch black once you leave the last streetlight behind. He and Lily had spent the evening together. Nothing unusual about it, just two people enjoying the cool air and a night that felt heavier than most, like the fog was waiting for something. They were standing outside near her village, talking and teasing each other like always, when Lily suddenly stopped mid-laugh. Her eyes locked on the far end of the road, and her expression changed so fast Liam's smile dropped instantly. He asked what she saw, but she didn't answer right away. She just kept staring into the fog like it was staring back. There was a strain in her voice when she finally whispered that she thought someone was standing there. Liam turned around quickly, but saw nothing. No person, no movement, just the thick blur of fog rolling across the ground. He tried to make light of it, tried to convince her she was imagining shapes, but her eyes didn't leave that spot. Eventually, she forced herself to relax, or at least pretend to, and they got into his car. The road toward her place was narrow and surrounded by fields that looked endless in the dark. As Liam drove, Lily kept checking the mirrors, glancing over her shoulder like someone was following them even though the road stayed empty. She wasn't talking much anymore. Liam said she had this rigid tension in her shoulders, something he had never seen from her before. Halfway to her place, she suddenly sat up straighter and gasped, pointing toward a patch of grass by the road. "There! Liam, someone's there!" He slowed down, looking exactly where she pointed, but again, nothing. Just fog. Fog so thick it looked almost solid in the headlights. Lily's voice trembled as she insisted she saw something pale crouched low, watching them. Liam tried to rationalize it. Maybe an animal, maybe the fog playing tricks. But Lily shook her head aggressively, saying she knew what she saw. By the time they reached her house, she seemed more unsettled than ever. She hesitated before getting out of the car, gripping the door handle but not stepping out yet. Instead, she stared down the road behind them for a long moment, like she expected whatever she saw earlier to be standing there again. She finally whispered, "Please be careful driving back. Don't stop for anything." Liam told me something about the tone of her voice stuck with him, even if he still didn't believe anything strange was going on. He stayed parked until she got safely inside, then turned the car around. But the moment he drove away from her house, he said the night changed. The fog thickened unnaturally fast, rising from the fields and closing around the car like a moving wall. The silence deepened, swallowing the sound of his engine until he felt like he was driving through something that wasn't fully empty. The further he drove, the more he felt watched. Not by a person, but by something that didn't breathe or blink. He didn't see anything yet, not then, But he said the fear came long before the first shadow appeared. Something in that fog had noticed him, had chosen him, and whatever Lily saw earlier, it wasn't gone. It was waiting. When Liam left Lily's house that night, he never imagined the road home would become the kind of memory that haunts a person long after they stop speaking about it. He said the moment her front door shut behind her, the air felt heavier, like something in the fog had simply been waiting for him to be alone. He didn't think much of it at first. He just turned the car around, headlights cutting through the thick mist curling over the narrow rural road. The dashboard clock glowed 11:57 p.m., its soft light flickering for a moment like the battery was struggling. That was the first small thing he should have paid attention to, he said, but he shrugged it off and kept driving. The road was empty in every direction. No cars, no animals, not even the distant lights of a farmhouse. It felt like he was the only person left awake in the entire county. As he approached the old bridge, the fog shifted strangely, almost pulling back as if revealing the structure piece by piece. Locals called it the Ashford Crossing, built decades ago, long before there were enough people around to justify repairing it. It creaked when heavy trucks passed and rattled when the wind hit it wrong. But that night, Liam said the bridge felt alive in a way he couldn't explain. His clock changed to 11:59 p.m. as the front tires touched the wooden planks. The temperature inside the car dropped sharply, making him shiver even though the heater was on low. The fog outside didn't drift or roll anymore. It just hung there like a solid sheet, unmoving, as if the night were holding its breath. Then, right as the clock clicked to 00, everything inside the car went dead. The engine shut off instantly. The radio cut out. The dashboard lights faded. The steering wheel locked stiff under his hands. The headlights blinked once and then darkened, leaving him swallowed by a darkness so thick he said it felt alive. Before he even had time to process what was happening, all 4 door locks slammed down simultaneously with a metallic that echoed unnaturally loud in the silence. Liam tried the key. Nothing. Tried the lights. Nothing. Tried the door handles. Completely stuck. He pulled harder, then harder again, panic building in his chest as the cold deepened around him. His breath fogged the inside of the windshield so fast it looked like the glass itself was exhaling. He kept glancing around, looking for movement in the fog, and for a second he swore he saw a shape shift near the back of the car, something pale brushing past the rear bumper like a hand dragging along the metal. His heartbeat slammed in his ears. The silence outside was absolute, not even the soft groan of the wooden bridge beneath him. He felt watched from every angle, like something was circling unseen. The clock on his dashboard, dead only moments before, blinked back to life, displaying 00:01, then flickering violently. Liam said he didn't know if he was imagining the faint tapping he heard next, gentle and rhythmic, like fingertips brushing the roof of the car from above. He wanted to believe it was branches from a tree, but there were no trees on the bridge. The tapping stopped. The fog pressed tight around the car, so close it felt like a living thing. Then the clock jumped to 00:02, glowing steady and bright as if nothing had been wrong. The locks clicked up, all of them. The engine light flickered back. The headlights blasted on, cutting through the fog with blinding force. Everything returned at once. Like whatever had taken hold of the car simply released it. Liam didn't wait to question it. His hands shook so badly he fumbled the ignition twice before the engine roared to life. The car lurched forward across the last stretch of the bridge, and he kept checking the mirrors even though he didn't want to see anything behind him. When he finally reached the end, the fog shifted again, thinning out as if guiding him into the forest road that curved along the river. But Liam said the fear didn't fade when he left the bridge. It followed him. The trees ahead stood unnaturally still, branches drooping low over the road like they were listening. Every shadow seemed too tall, every patch of darkness too thick. He had the overwhelming feeling that the moment he crossed that bridge, something had started following him. Something that wanted him to keep going deeper. Something that didn't want him to stop. Liam said that once he left the bridge behind him, he expected the fear to fade, or at least loosen its grip on his chest. But instead, it only grew tighter, sinking into him like the cold that still clung to his skin. The road ahead twisted into the forest, a long stretch of asphalt surrounded by trees that bent overhead like a dark tunnel. And the fog didn't float harmlessly anymore. It crawled, thick and heavy, rolling low across the ground as if it were following him. He kept glancing at the clock, watching the numbers glow 00:03, 00:04, each minute feeling too slow, like time itself didn't want to move forward. His mind kept replaying the moment the car died at exactly midnight, the way the doors locked on their own, the tapping on the roof, that suffocating silence that felt like it was listening. He tried forcing himself to breathe normally, to calm down, but the fear stayed buried under every thought, like a second heartbeat. The forest made it worse. The deeper he drove, the darker it became, until the headlights looked weak and swallowed by the fog. Usually he liked this road. It was familiar, peaceful, just trees and quiet. But tonight it felt unfamiliar, wrong, like something about it had shifted while he was gone. The branches on either side seemed too still, frozen in place, and every shadow looked stretched into shapes that didn't make sense. He kept gripping the steering wheel tighter and tighter, aware of the strange pressure in the air, something heavy that made it hard to swallow. He tried to shake the thought that something had come with him from the bridge, but the idea clung stubbornly to the back of his mind. He kept telling himself he only needed to get through the forest, only needed to reach the open highway, but a part of him already knew the night wasn't done with him. Liam's focus snapped ahead when the fog suddenly thickened, not gradually like before, but instantly, as if someone had dropped a dense, swirling wall directly in front of his car. He instinctively slowed, leaning forward, trying to see through the haze. That was when he saw it. A figure. A white shape standing perfectly still in the middle of the road. At first he thought it was a person wearing something light, maybe someone lost or hurt. But then he realized the outline was too bright, too washed out, almost glowing faintly in the headlights. He didn't even have time to process the shape because the distance between him and it collapsed in seconds. He slammed the brakes, but the tires skidded on the damp road, the car sliding forward uncontrollably. The figure didn't move. It didn't run or flinch or react in any way. It just stood there, facing him, head slightly lowered like it was waiting. Liam's entire body tensed as he braced for impact, but there was none. No thud, no resistance, no sound at all. The car passed directly through the figure like it was nothing but air, but Liam felt something. An instant drop in temperature so intense it ripped the breath out of his lungs and made his fingers go numb against the steering wheel. For a split second, it felt like ice water had poured through him, like the presence inside the fog had moved through the car itself. Liam, chest tightening as the cold vanished just as quickly as it came. His mind scrambled, trying to understand what had happened. He couldn't. His hands shook violently as he forced the car forward, heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. He kept saying out loud over and over, "No, no, no, what was that? What was that?" Because the alternative was letting himself believe he had just driven through a human body. He didn't want to look in the mirrors. Every instinct screamed not to. But he had to know. He had to make sure he hadn't hit someone. Slowly, breath sharp and uneven, he turned his eyes toward the side mirror. And there it was. The figure. Standing in the center of the road behind him, exactly at the spot where the car had passed through it. Facing him now, with its pale body perfectly still and its head tilted at that same unnatural angle. Liam felt his stomach drop. The figure hadn't chased the car. It hadn't run. It hadn't even turned toward him. It was simply there again, as if it had never moved at all, as if it existed in two places at once. He couldn't see a face, couldn't make out details, just the faint glow of something white surrounded by thick fog. The figure didn't move a single inch, but Liam felt its attention heavy on him, like cold fingers pressing lightly against the back of his neck. His throat tightened painfully. He didn't know whether to stop, to drive faster, or to scream. All he knew was that the thing on the road was not human, and it wasn't finished with him. And as the forest swallowed the road ahead and the figure slowly faded back into the fog behind him, Liam realized with absolute certainty that whatever had crossed the bridge at midnight with him had followed him into the forest, and it didn't want him to escape it. Liam kept driving, but every second after seeing that figure on the road felt like his body was moving on instinct alone, like his mind was still frozen somewhere back on that stretch of asphalt where everything stopped making sense. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly the skin across his knuckles stretched pale, yet he barely felt it. All he could feel was the pounding throb of his heartbeat and the cold crawling up his arms from inside the car, a cold that didn't belong to the weather. The forest swallowed him quickly, the trees rising like dark silhouettes leaning over the road, their branches twisting into shapes that looked too skeletal, too deliberate, as if they were reaching toward the car. He could still see the white figure in his mind, the way it didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't react as the car barreled straight through it. For a moment he forced himself to believe it was a hallucination, some trick of fog and headlights, but then he remembered what he saw in the mirror. That same pale shape standing exactly where it had been a second before, except now behind the car, facing him, watching him, waiting. He kept glancing at the rearview mirror against his own will, terrified he'd see it standing in the back seat or drifting closer with every blink. But the mirror had shifted somehow. The reflection inside it looked dimmer than the real world, like the glass was fogged from the inside even though he could wipe nothing away. It gave him only a faint outline of his own face and a darkness behind him that felt thicker than shadow, as if the mirror was hiding something he wasn't meant to see. The road twisted deeper into the forest, and the fog grew unnaturally heavy. It didn't drift across the ground like normal fog. It moved upward in slow spirals, coiling around the base of trees and then sliding across the road ahead of him like it was blocking his path on purpose. Every few seconds, the beams of his headlights would hit a shape in the fog that made his breath stop, a flicker of white, a suggestion of movement, something human-shaped but not solid enough to be real. And yet, real was exactly what it felt like. He reached for the radio, desperate for any noise other than his own panicked breathing, but the radio refused to turn on. The screen remained black, dead, as if the power had been drained from the entire dashboard. The heater was still running, but the air pouring from the vents grew colder and colder, until every exhale came out in a thin fog. He turned the heater up further, but nothing changed. The car felt occupied, like someone, or something, was sitting beside him, draining the warmth from the air. His mind replayed everything Lily had said earlier, that she saw someone crouched on the roadside, pale and watching them. He had dismissed it, teased her, told her it was nothing. Now he felt that same gaze pressing against the back of his neck, so heavy he couldn't stop shifting in his seat. And then his phone lit up. He hadn't touched it. He hadn't even heard it vibrate. It simply lit up in the empty passenger seat, the brightness cutting through the darkness like a blade. He didn't want to look at it, didn't want to read whatever had appeared on the screen, but the glow was impossible to ignore. Slowly, he glanced over. One notification. No sender, no app, no number. Just 3 words glowing stark against a black background. Don't look back. The message shouldn't have been possible. His phone had no signal, the battery had been low earlier, and there was no app that would send something like that. But there it was, pulsing on the screen like a warning from something that wasn't supposed to know he existed. Liam's chest tightened so hard he thought he might pass out. He dropped the phone immediately, letting it fall between the seat and the door, not wanting any part of it touching him. His breath came shallow and too fast, but he forced himself to keep his eyes straight ahead. Another patch of fog drifted across the road, thicker, denser, tinted with the faintest hint of a shape inside it. A shoulder. A head. No, that was impossible. He pushed harder on the gas, even though the road was narrowing, twisting deeper into the forest. The trees groaned and shifted overhead as if the wind was picking up, but there was no wind. The leaves weren't moving. Only the sound was. Like the forest itself was exhaling, slow and long, as if something ancient was waking. Liam swallowed hard, his throat tight, and told himself to keep driving. Don't stop. Don't look behind you. Don't look into the trees. But something in the fog was following him. He could feel it. It didn't need footsteps. It didn't need sound. It stayed just out of sight, just far enough that he couldn't see it fully, but close enough that every instinct in him screamed that if he slowed down, even by a second, it would catch up. The road, the fog, the trees, all of it felt wrong now, warped by something he could not explain. It was no longer just the night. Something else had entered it, something that had noticed him, something that wasn't letting him go. Liam didn't know how long he had been driving when the road began to change beneath the tires, shifting from smooth asphalt into something rougher, older, like the forest had taken back the path while he wasn't watching. The fog pressed so close now that it felt like the car was cutting through clouds made of cold breath, each swirl and ripple giving the impression of fingers dragging across the hood. His pulse hammered in his throat, and he kept swallowing hard, trying to keep some control over himself. But his brain wouldn't stop looping what he'd seen behind him. The pale figure standing motionless on the road, unharmed, untouched, as if cars couldn't hurt what wasn't entirely there. He tried again to turn the radio on, needing the distraction, but it sputtered with static before dying completely, the screen flickering weakly like something was feeding off the power. The air inside the car felt heavy, thick, like the atmosphere before a storm, except there was no wind outside, no thunder, nothing natural to explain the suffocating pressure building around him. His phone remained dark now, even when he pressed the buttons, as if whatever had sent that message was finished speaking. The only light came from his headlights, two narrow beams swallowed by the endless fog. Then the forest changed again. The trees that lined the road started to look wrong, bent, angled, almost leaning inward over him. Their branches stretched too far across the road like ribs closing around a spine. He slowed down, uncertain if the road even continued forward, but something in him whispered not to stop. He kept moving, inch by inch, feeling the forest tighten like a trap. The sound started then, so faint at first he thought it was his imagination. A soft tapping, not on the roof, not on the windows, but somewhere deep in the car. A hollow clicking, like fingernails drumming on plastic. He held his breath, listening. The tapping grew louder, traveling slowly from the rear of the vehicle toward the dashboard, like something inside the walls of the car was crawling its way forward. He gripped the steering wheel so hard his palms ached, refusing to look at the back seat, refusing to move his head even a fraction. The fog thickened again, swallowing the road until he couldn't tell where the forest ended and the sky began. The tapping stopped. For 1 second, the silence was worse than the sound. And then he heard something else. Breathing. Not his, not from outside, from directly behind the driver's seat. A slow inhale, long and strained, as if pulling cold air into lungs that didn't work anymore. His chest collapsed in panic. His eyes burned as tears threatened to spill. For a moment, he thought he might faint, and part of him welcomed the idea. Anything to escape that cold presence so close he could feel it pressing against the back of his neck. But then the car jolted violently to the left, as if someone had shoved it. He yanked the wheel, heart exploding in his chest, trying to keep the car on the invisible road. The tires skidded on the damp ground, gravel spraying as he fought for control. Something slammed against the back door, one hard, deliberate thud, like a warning. Liam, pushing the accelerator harder, the engine whining as it strained forward. The forest blurred past him, trees stretching into long, dark smears. But no matter how fast he went, the cold didn't leave. It stayed pressed against him, breathing softly, rhythmically, like it was waiting for the exact moment he would look back. His vision vibrated with fear. His heart thudded so loudly he could hear it in his teeth. And then the fog broke for half a second, just long enough for him to see what was standing on the side of the road ahead. A pale figure, the same one from before, but closer now, clearer, its shape more defined. It stood with its head tilted slightly, like it was listening to something. As he approached, it didn't step forward, didn't reach for the car. It simply turned its head in an impossible, slow arc until its face aligned with his window. His headlights passed over it, and something about the face wasn't right. Not wrong like blood or wounds, wrong like absence. No eyes, no mouth, just the faint impression of where features should be, blurred like fog given human shape. Liam squeezed his eyes shut for a moment, then opened them again, but the figure had already vanished. The road was empty. But the breathing behind him grew louder, shaking and too close. The tapping returned, crawling up the side panel of the car. His mind shattered into panic as every instinct begged him to stop, to run, to get out, but he knew stepping into that fog would be worse. Somehow, he knew. So he kept driving, the road warping beneath him, the forest swaying unnaturally at the edges of his vision. He didn't understand what the entity wanted, why it had chosen him, why it had followed him from the bridge. But one truth echoed inside him with the same certainty as the sound in the car. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't trying to scare him. It was trying to get inside. Liam could feel the thing closing in, even though he still refused to look back, gripping the wheel so tightly his fingers went numb, the shaking in his hands now so violent it blurred the edges of the road in front of him. The fog thickened again, swallowing everything, the white mass churning like a live sea that wanted to pull the car into it. The breathing behind him grew more irregular, like whatever was in the back seat had become impatient, like it was leaning closer, studying the back of his head with a hunger that had nothing to do with flesh. The car's engine sputtered once, then twice, like it was choking on the cold air pressing in through the vents. Liam, "Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop," under his breath, as if the car could hear him, as if the speed alone was the only thing keeping him tethered to the world he knew. The trees along the road blurred into twisted silhouettes, bending unnaturally, curving inward like they were forming a tunnel meant to trap him. The tapping started again, this time from the floor beneath his feet. Slow at first, then faster, like nails drumming in anticipation. Liam lifted his foot instinctively, terrified something would grab his ankle. But there was nowhere to go. His body froze when the tapping climbed up from the floor to the inside of the driver's door, each tap spaced perfectly, as if counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth tap never came. Instead, the breathing in the car cut out all at once, leaving a silence so sharp it felt like a blade being pressed against his ears. Then, without warning, the cold intensified. So fast, so violently, that frost crept across the inside of the windshield in seconds, branching into pale veins that spread toward the edges. Liam wiped at it with his sleeve, but the frost grew faster than he could clear, narrowing his view until all he could see was a tunnel of white fog ahead. The car headlights flickered, dimmed, then surged back to life, reflecting off something standing in the road again. Not beside it, not in the distance, directly in front of the car. Liam slammed the brakes, but the car didn't stop. It skidded, tires screaming, sliding straight toward the figure. And just like before, the thing didn't move. It didn't brace. It didn't react. It simply stood, its outline more solid this time, its form more defined, its presence heavier, as though the fog itself had condensed around it. Liam squeezed his eyes shut as the front bumper passed through it, bracing for impact that never came. The cold, however, stayed. It seeped into his skin, into his lungs, into his mind, numbing him from the inside out. And then something whispered. Not out loud, not in the air, inside his head. A voice so faint he wasn't sure it was words at first, just the impression of something speaking from far away, from beneath the world. but it carried a message so clear it made his blood crawl. "You shouldn't have looked." Liam gasped, instinctively jerking his head as if shaking the voice loose, but the whisper dug deeper, threading through his thoughts like a needle sewing itself into place. The fog ahead shifted, parting just enough for the road to reappear. The car lurched forward, engine whining as though it were being dragged instead of driven. The trees thinned gradually, turning into uneven shapes in the distance. For a terrifying moment, Liam thought the car was drifting in circles, looping endlessly through the same stretch of forest, each tree looking identical to the last, each turn feeling repeated. His sense of direction warped, time slipping sideways, seconds stretching too long or snapping short, like something was playing with the space around him. His breath hitched when the whisper came again, clearer this time, forming a sentence that made his skin prickle with cold dread. "It followed you home." The road finally widened ahead, emerging from the forest like breaking through a wall. Liam felt the pressure inside the car lift slightly, the cold retreating, the breathing fading, the tapping stopping altogether. But the silence that replaced it wasn't normal. It felt like the quiet after a predator decides to step back, not because it's gone, but because it's waiting for a better moment. The fog thinned enough for him to see the familiar stretch of road leading back toward the town, the faint glow of distant lights barely visible through the night. Relief hit him so violently he almost sobbed. He pressed harder on the gas, desperate to leave the forest behind. But as he drove, the whisper echoed one last time, soft as a breath against the back of his neck. "This isn't over." Then the air warmed abruptly. The windshield cleared, the headlights brightened, and just like that, the world snapped back into something that looked normal again. But Liam knew with absolute certainty that normal didn't mean safe, not anymore. Whatever had been in that forest, on that bridge, in his car, it wasn't gone. It had simply decided to let him reach home. After everything Liam went through, the bridge, the girl in white, the forest that seemed alive, the sheriff filed his report and quietly told him something most people in that town pretend not to know. "Whatever you saw, you're not the first." Liam never drove that road again. He stopped visiting Lily's village entirely, even though nothing there had ever hurt him. It was the spaces between the roads, the corners where the trees lean in closer, the places where the fog settles too low. That's what he fears now. Lily tried to explain it once. She said that stretch of land has a history of unfinished things. People lost, moments trapped, accidents that never settled. Some locals say the figure in white is a warning. Others say she's looking for someone who never made it across the bridge years ago. But the truth is, nobody really knows, and anyone who tries to investigate stops after one night. Liam still hears small details sometimes. Someone else saw a woman standing in the road. Someone's dog refused to cross the bridge. Someone's headlights cut through fog and revealed a shape that shouldn't have been there. And every time he hears one of these stories, he feels that cold wave all over again, the same one that hit him on the bridge. The scariest part? Liam never got answers. He never got closure. The road never explained itself. And that's why he tells people this. If you ever drive that route at night, never stop on the bridge. Never slow down for someone standing in the middle of the road. And if you look in your mirror and see something white behind you, don't look twice. Don't give it attention. Keep driving. Some places don't want to be understood. Some places only want to be remembered.